what's up guys? Nick the Informative Fisherman here, and today I want to talk about setting the hook on different styles of bait, different styles of hook setting. This is a very elaborate subject. I see a lot of people not being able to cover this because it's so thorough, and the way you have to set the hook on different baits and the way you feel it and the timing is so intricate to each particular bait and category. I'm going to tie on a bunch of different baits, show you how I cast them, show you how I retrieve them, and what I do when I get bit, and when to set that hook on that particular style bait and how. So first things first, I have a jig tied on right now. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of hook sets. So when I refer to hook sets, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I'm just going to make a cast out there first. Let's say I have a bottom bait, and here's a style of hook set right here. When I say reel down and jam it home, I'm reeling down to a tight line and I'm jamming it home, okay? If there's slack in my line, I don't want to set the hook on slack. Setting the hook on slack, what it does is when you have a knot tied a line, when you set the hook on a slack line, something has to give. You're shocking it, okay? When you set the hook on slack line, you're going to tend to either break a rod, break a knot, break the fish off, or tear the hook loose of a fish. So never set the hook on a slack line. When I say jam it home, you're going to reel down to a tight line, you're going to feel the fish, and you're going to jam it home. What you're going to do is allow that rod to load up and drive that hook, okay? So when I say a snapping hook set, you never want to snap it on slack line. When I say reel down and jam it home, you're strictly going to reel down, tight line, feel the fish, and jam it home. A really hard hook set. Now when I say reel into the fish and lean on it, I'm casting out there, I'm reeling. This is now a reaction bait. I feel him grab it, I reel down to where I feel the fish, and I lean on it. I pull real hard at that point. If you're using things like a swim bait and stuff, you're going to cast it out. You're going to reel. When you feel them hit it, speed up your reel. If you feel them load up, lean on it. Reel and lean on it. That's absolutely critical. So we have the reel into it till where it loads up and lean on it. Then we have the reel down and jam it home. We're going to cast it out. We're going to reel down and jam it home. That's for a bottom bait. A bigger single heavier hook is the bottom bait. Reel down, jam it home. When I reel up, reel on them till they load and lean on them is another hook set. Now from there we do have another hook set. We have a dragging bait, okay? This is where we're dragging it. Dragging, boom, we feel the bite. You never want to have your rod at a 12 o'clock unless you're trying to feel it. I see people dragging baits, boom, and they feel it and they try to set the hook from here like that. That never ever works. So that's going to be that, have it out there, you're dragging, you feel them, now we're going back to that reel down and set it home. So those are a couple of choices for you right there. Now let me grab my topwater rod. Now for all these baits, it doesn't really matter what I'm using. So for example, I'm going to talk about fishing like a buzz bait, fishing a frog, fishing a topwater with exposed treble hooks, and the styles of hook sets you need to do. So this is my frog, okay? I'm going to cast my frog out there. I'm working it in place. Boom, it blows up on my frog. Everybody has a tendency when they blow up on their frog, they're working their frog and they're slack line. Fish blows up and they try to set it on slap line. You're cracking the whip. Something has to fail. So if you look close, and I'll show you some B-rolls, as I'm working the frog, you'll see me reel down and drive it home. You're going to see me reel down and jam it home. And it's going to be a fast motion to where it looks like I'm doing a snappy hook set or cracking the whip. But realistically, I'm reeling to a tight line. I want to see my line straight. I want to reel to the fish and then jam it home at that point. What's going to happen is when you reel into the fish with a big steady hook like this, reel down and jam it home on the surface, that's what you need with a big stout hook. Like a frog, a big prong style hook right there, that's critical. A buzz bait, a big single hook, that's absolutely critical. But now let's say I'm throwing a walking bait and it has treble hooks, okay? I'm out there, I'm working it, the fish blows up. Do I jam it home? Absolutely not. If I see the fish blow up, I'm going to reel a little bit faster to where they think it's running away. A treble hook will now load up into that fish. So what I do if I'm working a treble hook bait, I'm reeling it, or I'm walking the dog and they grab it, I'm gonna reel faster or try to walk the dog faster. What's gonna happen is those treble hooks are gonna dig in, that fish is gonna load up, and then you lean on it and load the rod at that point. All right, now I'm gonna show you a sweeping hook set. The only hook set I do for crankbaits is a sweeping hook set. I'm gonna cast it out. I'm reeling, I feel them hit it. I'm going to reel faster until they load and sweep. You don't want to jerk your rod up. You don't want to jerk your rod down. You're strictly going to feel that fish load up. When they hit, if they hit, all you have to do is reel fast. You'll feel that the fish is stuck on there. They hit, you reel fast and lean. That rod's going to load up enough and drive those hooks for you. That's the leaning hook set, the reel down and drill them hook set, that top water hook set. These are all absolutely critical things to keep in mind. So now I'm going to show you with a spinning rod. All right, now on a spinning rod, a lot of the time we're fishing very light little hooks like mosquito hooks or drop shot hooks or light wire worm hooks. So what I want to show you is a light wire worm set and a reel set. So I'm going to cast this wacky rig out there, and the reel set is what I like to do for drop shots and for wacky rigs, and sometimes a Ned rig. If it has a weed guard, I'm going to do a different style of hook set. So the reel set is simple. I feel the fish grab it, I'm going to reel the slack line, and I'm going to reel until the fish loads, and I'm just going to lean up in slow motion. I'll show you actual speed right here of a reel set. Now, what I want you to pay attention to is I'm not jerking with the rod. I'm not jerking at all. I'm strictly reeling into the fish until that fish loads, okay? So here's the reel set. Boom, I feel the fish grab it. I want to reel into it. When I feel the fish, I'm going to reel. As that fish starts to bend the rod, I'm strictly going to lift up into the position that I want to fight the fish. I'm going to reel into that position. I'm not jerking at any time. Now, if you had a light wire EWG or a worm hook, extra wide gap, or a worm hook, a little offset worm hook, and it's a light wire, and I'll show you the difference. This is the hook set I do. Now, if you're on a spinning rod, if you're fishing a shaky head, a Ned rig, a Nico rig, anything where the hook's a little bit stouter. A Nico rig, a lot of the time I'm going to do a reel set. But in regards to, oh, I actually had a fish on there. In regards to a light wire hook where you have to Texas rig it, or it has a weed guard, or it's like a shaky head where it's a little bit bigger, what I'm going to do is reel down to where the line is tight and then give a nice smooth pull. And I'm going to try to give it half power. It's like throwing a little lighter punch. Not like with a jig or a big heavy hook where I said jam it home, reel down, and jam it home. I'm strictly wanting to reel down to make sure my line is tight. If you shock the line, if you set the hook on slack line with a spinning rod, the odds of it breaking are really high. So even if you have that Texas rig worm, you're going to reel down to where it's tight, and then you're just going to give it a medium pull. Don't jam it home, just a little medium hook set, and that's going to allow that slightly bigger hook to drive in there. So let's get into some of the baits. I'm going to give you some of the details on how I retrieve those and how I set the hook on those to help you better figure it out.
Hang with us, guys. We'll be right back. Oh, you heard they got weapons of big fish destruction? Well, you heard right. BWA Fishing Performance is the newest company hitting the U.S. market by storm. With some of the sickest swim baits around and non-cookie cutter style lures that you could ever get your hands on. It's time to show these fish something new. Visit BWA.com. Hey guys, did you know that yours truly is now hosting Lucky Tackle Box's monthly panfish instructionals? And aside from relentless fish catching, I'll be breaking down the rigging and the gear you need to get going along the way. And of course, a few extra tips to help you score more fish on the goodies included in your box. So remember, the tug is our drug, so go visit LuckyTackleBox.com and get signed up today. Attention Northern California anglers, have you been to Boat Country in Escalon with one of the largest selections of welded aluminum fishing boats from North River, Hughescraft, and now Crestliner? Chances are they have the right boat for you. And did I mention they have a full service center to take care of all your repair or boating maintenance needs? If you're a boat owner or just looking to become one, you owe it to yourself to check these guys out. Visit BoatCountryUSA.com or stop on by. We'll see you there. Bigger, better, badder. The evolution of the buzzbait is upon us. The Evolution Bait's grass burner is a high-performance bass snatching machine. High-end components, inline displacement, larger profile, balanced body for fast or slower retrieves, better deflection, and oversized treble hooks. You wouldn't bring a slingshot to a gunfight, would you? Find out more at evolutionbaits.com. Did you know that P-Line makes specialized lines for all your fishing needs, from the super strong abrasive resistant CXX or the low stretch super stealthy CX Premium, or maybe you're looking for invisibility or super bite detection with P-Line's 100% fluorocarbon. No matter what your needs, P-Line's got it covered. To find out more, visit P-Line.com.
P-Line, baby.
Ever tried pulling a planer board next to your boat when trolling or fishing from a swift current bank? If not, you're missing out on one of the most phenomenal fish catching machines on the market today. With Yellowbird planer boards pulling your lines perpendicular to your boat, you can't help but catch more fish. Find out more by visiting www.yellowbirdproducts.com. Alright, so here's that light wire hook. This is where I'm going to throw like a Texas rig on a spinning rod if I'm trying to fish weightless and get it out there on really light line. And here's your flipping hook right here. See the diameter? Way thicker hook, way thinner hook. You're looking at a standard, and this is like a 4 to 6x thickness of that hook. Here on my bait casting, I'm gonna have to reel down and jam it home hard, versus here, all I have to do is reel down, make sure my line's tight, and give it a medium pull because I'm using lighter line and I don't want to break that off. All right, let's look at these two top waters. We have the big King Daddy Frog and the big Stutter Step. Big treble hooks, big prong hooks right here. Now these are two top waters where we need to set the hook entirely different. This, I'm constantly walking and dancing. If a fish blows up on this, I need to walk it a little bit faster to see if the fish has himself hooked on this. If a fish blows up on this, I need to stare at my frog, and if I see that it's gone, I need to reel down to a tight line and jam it home. Reeling faster is not going to set the hooks on big prongs, but if I try to jam this home, let's say in theory, one of these little hooks has them right here in the cheek, you try to jam it home, you are now tearing that bait free of that fish where you could have landed them. And if you do it vice versa and just reel a little bit and do a little light reel, work it faster on a frog, that hook point's only gonna hold into that fish and you're never gonna drive that thicker hook into there. So those are two completely different topwater style of hook sets that you need to keep in mind. Blow up on this, walk the dog a little bit faster, see if he's hooked. If not, slow it back down. Blows up on this, make sure you can't see the frog, reel down to a tight line and jam it home real hard. Don't crack the whip on slack line. Now let's take a look at two reaction baits with exposed hooks. An underspin with a swim bait, little lighter wire, single hook on there. And then you take this TNT Claymore, vibrating jig, chatterbait, whatever you want to call it, big stouter single hook. Well, we know we're gonna have to set the hook a little bit harder on this and not as hard on this to penetrate that hook. But in theory, you still need to cast it out there, reel it. When you feel that hit fish, when you feel that fish hit it, speed up a little bit if you feel that he has it, then set the hook. But what's even more critical is your rod position. And let me show you that. If you cast out, don't worry that this is a crankbait. If you cast out with a vibrating jig or chatterbait or an underspin and you're reeling, don't have your rod completely sideways to you. You need to almost be pointed straight at it. Slightly off to the side. If you see my body right here, I'm not pointed straight, but just kind of off to the side. The reason for it is once that fish loads up, now you have a big motion of setting that hook at that point, which is going to allow you to drive that bigger hook. If you have it out here to your side, you're going to have a much shorter motion. If that fish grabs it and swims forward like they often do with an underspin or a vibrating jig, they're going to grab it and swim forward. You're going to feel tension, and then you're going to feel your line get really light. If you feel your line get really light, you got to reel faster, and then you're going to feel them load, and then you have to sweep set with some power. You're going to sweep into them once you feel that fish load. But don't have it to where you don't have enough space in case that happens. A bait that they're following, they're often going to grab it and move forward. And if you have to reel real fast, natural instinct sometimes to turn, and it's going to shorten your hook set. So almost be pointed straight at it, a little bit of pressure off to the side to where you can feel your rod moving and get that bait detection done. So another mention I want to make when setting the hook with a frog. If your frog's out there and you're working it, you always want to be pointed straight at a frog when you're working it because you're trying to walk the dog or you're trying to pop it in place. When that fish gets it, Don't set the hook off to the side, all right? And also, if you set the hook on slack line, which is a big no-no, let's say that fish grabs it here, and this is his mouth, and you set the hook on slack line. Well, the hook has to turn. The whole bait has to turn in the fish's mouth. So the fish is getting jerked, his mouth opens, and that frog finds a way out of his mouth. Versus a tight line, oftentimes when the bass feels that pressure of that tight line, they're gonna cinch down harder or choke it back harder. And another thing, that tight line's gonna put that frog in the correct position. It's gonna start pulling it forward, and it's not gonna pop the fish's mouth open, and those hooks are gonna start to penetrate, and then as you set the hook, it's gonna get them. So don't pop it on slack line, reel to a tight line really fast, and you wanna come up to a 12 o'clock high position. You're trying to dig it into the roof of their mouth. The hardest part is right up here. Don't set it off to the side. Come as high as you can and put your body into it. Turn and leverage as high as you can. Get up high and try to drive those hooks in tight, but don't set it on slack line. All right, let's take the opposites. We have a Bill Lewis rattle trap and a Strike King spinnerbait right here. We cast them both out and we retrieve them, right? Well, I'm not gonna get into how to retrieve them, but what I do want you to understand is when you get bit on both of these, you're going to reel into it fast. Once you feel them load up, big single hook, vertical hook set, as high as you can. You can also sweep on these and you'll still tend to hook them, but you're gonna do the same thing on both of these. This is a sweeping hook set. Remember, treble hooks. We're gonna reel in, we're gonna sweep, we're gonna keep it low. Now what happens is when a fish comes up and eats a treble hook, you never know what angle that treble hook is stuck. It could be here, it could be here, could be here. With a sweeping hook set, the only thing you're doing, once that fish grabs it, is accelerating the bait forward. That fish came up and it grabbed the bait. If you accelerate it forward, the hook that already has them is going to penetrate deeper. If you jerk up, you're changing possibly what hook has that fish, and you're trying to penetrate another hook. So a vertical hook set or a popping hook set is no good, because now you're driving new hooks and the hooks that already had them can come free. Let's say they barely get one of these hooks. That reel into them and sweep is only accelerating it forward, and that one little hook that has them is going to stay penetrated, and you're going to land more fish. With that spinnerbait, a lot of the time they're going to come up, they're going to slash at the blades. If you reel faster, when you feel them hit, if you reel faster, it looks like it's surging, getting away. Once they come back and get it and load up on there, reel down and jam it home. I like that vertical hook set because it's that big single hook and you want to get them in the roof of the mouth. Always, when you hook any big fish, try to keep your rod tip down. If the fish is going to jump, try to force their head back under the water. Bigger, heavier baits, more leverage to get rid of it. All right, here we have a big old yellow bird jerk bait. Now we all know, I'm not going to go super dumbed down on this. Jerk, jerk, pause, jerk, 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 pause, jerk, 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 pause. Erratic movement and pauses. And we know jerk baits are cold water, clear water bait. But when it pauses in the middle of the water column and you see your line jump, when it's sitting there, you're on the pause, or you feel them smack it, or you see your line go boonk, and you know they have it, resist the urge of setting the hook on that. Because what happens is they come up and they grab it from one side and they start to go with it. If you set the hook, you're doing the same thing. You're repositioning those treble hooks. The best thing you can do is when you jerk and you pause, you want to have your rod pointed right to it. As you see it start to go away, strictly reel to load that rod and then sweep on it just like a crankbait, and you're going to land more fish like that. All right, now let's take something like a flutter spoon or a jigging spoon. Well, no, jigging is dropping the bait down to the bottom or lifting it up, letting it fall, lifting it up, and letting it fall. When you get these bites, when you're jigging, a lot of the time, you'll be to the top of your jigging, and that motion, you should never go over like 10 o'clock, like 9:30 down to the water, 9:30 down to the water, but a lot of the time you're gonna lift up, and your rod's going to be high when that fish grabs it. It's just the nature of the beast. When you're jigging a spoon or working a flutter spoon and ripping it up, sometimes they grab it at weird times. The thing you need to keep in mind when jigging, having a fast reel is absolutely important, but you need to be ready at all times to reel as fast as you can. Instinct tells you when you get hit is to jerk. With a spoon, you need to keep in your mind that you're normally using a treble hook is to get ready to reel as fast as you possibly can to load that rod. So keep in mind, vertical jig, flutter spoon, big spoon that you're hopping up off the bottom, keep in mind that your hook set is going to be as fast as you can possibly reel. Remember when we were playing video games next to our buddy? This is the fastest one who can hit the buttons. Keep that in your head. At any moment, it's gonna go off and you're gonna reel as fast as you possibly can to hook up with that fish and then load the rod. Now let's take a look at these 3 swim baits. All 3 of these, you have to set the hook completely differently. Here's a gantrel. This is a suspending, kind of a glide bait, kind of an X-action bait. I use it on a slow roll. What I'm gonna do is if I feel the fish grab it, I'm gonna reel to tighten that line, make sure the fish is loaded up, and then lean on it. But I also use it like a jerk bait because it's suspended. I'll slow roll and stop. If I see the fish hit it, the only thing I'm doing right there is reeling real fast to load the rod, just like a jerk bait. Let's take this BWA S-Trout. This is a multi-segmented S-action bait. It's gonna be going through the water. It's sinking down there. It's moving slowly. Smaller treble hooks. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna have the rod pointed at it. Once I feel the fish grab it, I'm gonna reel to load that rod and I'm gonna sweep hook set. Then you look at this trash fish right here. Big single keel hook on there, but it's Texas rigged, all right? Now we know we gotta get that hook to come out. We feel the fish hit it, we reel down, he makes sure he has it, and we jam it home hard, just like a big jig. Thicker hook, reeling is not gonna do anything for you. A half-hearted little hook set, not gonna do anything for you. You gotta reel down, point the rod at him, and jam it home, jam it vertical to drive that bigger hook into that fish. All right, guys, so hopefully these tips helped you out. If this is a little bit overwhelming to you, don't worry about it. A matter of time, it's going to become second nature. You just want to keep this stuff in mind, and if you already knew it, that's great, man. Greatly appreciate you guys watching. Check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Informative Fisherman, and we'll see you next time.